Hello everyone, welcome to my video on icon veneration. So this is going to be a video covering why I and Catholics and general apostolic churches and some high church Protestants believe it is okay to venerate icons, and not just why it's okay, but why it should be encouraged. So I've got three items here on a list that I think together present some fairly good evidence as to why it should be perfectly encouraged in all places of worship to have icons. Now, this was a topic that was recommended to me on Discord, so if you have any ideas of what I should cover next, please do let me know, and I will bump those ideas up the list. Either email me or contact me on Discord. Just check the About Me section of my channel, check my bio, and you should find links there. Anyway, so first piece of evidence is from Exodus. This is Exodus 25:19. Make one cherub at one end and one cherub at the other. Of one piece with the mercy seat you shall make the cherubim at its two ends. That is a command from God on the construction of the Ark of the Covenant, which is where the Ten Commandments are held. Obviously, cherubim are angels. They are icons being constructed for the Ark. The second bit of evidence, this is the Council of Nicaea. I've taken a quote here from a transcript that I found online, but the Council of Nicaea was effectively about whether or not icon veneration should be allowed, and this quote here is taken from a longer paragraph that basically says icons are good, it should be encouraged for people to use icons. Icons are historical, they're biblical, they are to be encouraged, they act as, I believe the quote, not directly from Nicaea, but I've heard people say online that icons are like windows into heaven. When you see a picture, it lifts your mind and your heart to God, which is effectively what prayer is, as a broad term for what prayer is. And so the quote I've picked out here is, "The revered holy images, whether painted or made of mosaic, are to be exposed." That is, again, part of a longer paragraph. And if you want to read the whole transcript of Nicaea 2, you can find it on Google. I think I actually just searched Second Council of Nicaea transcript, and it was sort of the third or fourth link down after some random Reddit link or something like that. So it's pretty easy to find, and it's a pretty good read as well. It's quite vindicating for apostolic Christians, Eastern Orthodox, Catholic, not necessarily Coptics because they'd split off by this point. But it's also quite vindicating for high church Anglicans and Christians like that. Christians that this video is made to vindicate. Anyway, the third point, and this is the most expansive point and is more of a Catholic point than a general Christian point, is the development of doctrine. So I've got written here, the councils can be trusted since they reflect the method of God's teaching, i.e. Levitical slave law. So the idea of development of doctrine is something is revealed and then it is clarified over time, such that when the time arises, like for example during a time of prevalent heresy, things can be clarified and people can be brought back onto the straight and narrow. It's also a way for morality to be provided to a group of people, wherein teaching them what the end goal would be is less practical. Slavery would be an example. Of course, in Leviticus, if you've read Leviticus, there's a lot of parts about slavery and who can and cannot be enslaved by the Israelites, and how there are certain things you're not allowed to do to your slaves, and you have to treat them a certain way. You have to have a certain amount of latent decency with them, etc., etc., which for the time was quite revolutionary, because slaves were treated pretty much as property in the time of the Old Testament. And then you have, of course, the New Testament update of that, or not update, but clarification, wherein Christ says that all those who are slaves and free are equal, equal under God, equal under Him. And that is the same with divorce as well. You have, of course, the part in the Gospel where Christ says that Moses allowed divorce because of hardness of heart. However, from the beginning it was not so. What God has made, let not man put asunder, etc., etc. Talking about whether divorce is allowed or not. And then you also have punishment severity. So where I was saying it's easier to give people a black and white, do this, don't do this sort of thing. If you do this, this bad thing will happen in the beginning. And then as time passes, there is further revelation, and then once revelation stops and there are councils, there is clarification when heresy happens. So, for example, again in Levitical law, in Leviticus, there's a lot of things that are death penalty or eye for an eye, and such and such. That's where the eye for an eye phrase comes from. It comes from Leviticus. There are a lot of things wherein you can receive the death penalty, like working on the Sabbath, for example. And then when Christ comes around, and in the when Christ he takes on human form, there's obviously new revelation from him, and also there's clarification on certain things. Like, for example, for working on the Sabbath, it's no longer punishable by death. There's a lot of ceremonial laws that aren't required anymore, that were meant to distinguish the Jewish people. And there's a lot of moral laws, like, say, the woman who is supposed to be stoned, and Christ says, "He who is without sin cast the first stone," wherein under Levitical law, that woman would have been stoned to death. There are things like that wherein the punishment is made less and less severe, but the morality is the thing that stays. And so these evidences of development of doctrine, when coupled with revelation and when it's simply just a clarification, are pieces of evidence to perhaps Protestants watching, or those who don't know much about ecumenical councils, as to why you can trust ecumenical councils and why they are biblical in the way that they do things, and why they reflect the way that God governs his people. So those are my top three. That was just off the top of my head, things that I thought of. Did a quick bit of research. As always, if I did get anything wrong, do let me know. And if I did misquote something, or if I get a reference wrong, or if you just disagree and you'd like to give some counter evidence, do let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. God bless, like and subscribe, and have a blessed day.